Alright, this is going to be the review sheet number 3 quick video. I hope it helps. I hope people watch it because there's no reason not to. So first one, now this has a lot of going on. So this might be one you might need to show your work on another page. I would advise you to because it does get to be kind of a lot in a way, but maybe you can fit it in. You can try. Anytime you're being asked to find the GCF or the LCM, you always have to do trees, which I've started here for you. Okay, so I'm not going to do the problem, obviously, but I'm going to kind of show you what's being expected. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so right there, you're finding the GCF first. You're going to do this first, and then you're going to do this one second. Okay, you're going to take your GCF, your prime factorizations of both. You're going to list them right here. Okay, which is why I have them written for you. And then that's how you're going to find the GCF and the LCM. Now, if you need any extra help, guys, GCF, that's going to be Chapter 1, LT number 7. This is going to be Chapter 1, LT number 8. So you can always go back and watch either of those two videos. You can go back and look in your notes. You can look at your practice sheets from these days. Okay? But I'm not going to help you anymore because I think there's plenty of resources for you to be able to figure out how to do this. Okay, so look back in your practice, look in your notes, but just understand that I would need to see all those things that are, all those pieces, so the trees, this, all that, okay? Let's go on to number 2, okay? Now we're going to be choosing the correct prime factorization. Just like last week, if you don't show work here, if you don't show your tree and break it down, it's not going to be correct. So you have to show the tree, breaking it down to all of its prime factors, and then select the correct answer. Okay, let's go to number 3. Okay, we did this last, we had one of these on review sheet 2 also. Okay, as you can see, it says use common denominators or use decimals, one of the two. If you're going to use common denominators, that's fine. You seem to know how to do that. You could use what I call the quick common denominator, or you could use the least common denominator. Either way, least common denominator is just the LCM of the two denominators, which I know that's we're kind of getting ahead. We're going to learn that later on, but you know, basically what I'm saying is you could just make both of these 40. There's something else that you could make it, but if you want to make them 40, that's fine, and then do whatever you did at the bottom to the top, and then compare them, or you can turn them to decimals. So just as a reminder, I've said this, I've had you guys hearing this for the last week or so. All fractions are division problems. All fractions are division problems. So if I ever want to turn a fraction into a decimal, I'm just going to do top number divided by bottom number. Top number divided by bottom number. And then I'm just going to have a decimal and a decimal. Now, you could do it either way, common denominators or decimals. But if I go over to this one, just remember, guys, I gave you that little strategy, and what that other little strategy is it's where you're going to take these two numbers and you're going to line them up by place value. So I'm just going to bring that one over here. So I'm going to put 0.675. Okay, and then remember I could add a 0 at the end of it just to get me just to fill it out. Now remember, when you're doing these, you got to work your way left to right. So I'll get it kind of started here. In the ones place, we have zeros. So we learn nothing about these two numbers as far as whether or not we figure out what one is bigger than the other. So now you'll be able to use that to figure it out, which one's larger. I'll just stop there. Here you have one's a fraction, one's a decimal. So you either need to turn them both to decimals or both to fractions. It's a mixed number, but same thing. Okay, so I don't care how you do it. I'd probably turn them both to decimals. Just turn this one to a decimal. Just as a reminder, that says 4 6/9, by the way. It's kind of hard to read on my copy. I don't know if it's as bad on yours. Nope, it's not. But it is 4 6/9. Remember, that means 4 point something, right? And then to turn 6/9 into a decimal, that's where we do this up here. 6 divided by 9. And then whatever that gives you, you'd write that there. Okay, and then you could do this process of stacking them up. Okay, same goes for this one. You could use common denominators, or you could use decimals. I don't care which. But you have to show it. If you don't show it, it's wrong. Doesn't matter whether you get less than, greater than, correct. Next one. Okay, median. Now, what I want you to do is, if you go back to review sheet number 2, we already went through and I showed you how to do median. Okay, median is the middle number. Okay, now there's a process. There is work that's required here. Okay, there is absolutely work required. And go back to review sheet 2. You can go back to the review sheet 2 quick video. I feel like since I've already covered it, and I even posted when I actually graded review sheet number 2 in class, I recorded that and I posted that. So you could go back and you could look at that as well. Okay, just remember it's the middle number. There is a process. If you go back, you will find out what that process is. Now you're gonna have to, and by the way, this right here is a big hint. Okay, that's a big hint to how you would do this. So just remember middle number. Okay, right there's your instructions. Okay, now the mode, we haven't done that one yet, so I'm going to give you a hint. That is the mode. We like to think of the word mode and most together. This would be the most occurring number. Okay, the number that occurred the most often, however you want to say it. Okay, so that is going to be your mode. And then finally your range, just like the median, we did this last week, so I feel like you should know what range is at this point. If you don't, look back on review sheet either 1 or 2, or the quick video for 2, and you will find out what range is. But if you look back at those review sheets, you'll see it immediately. Let's go on. Alright, rounding to the nearest hundredth. We're up to rounding again. Okay, just keep in mind, if I gave you this number 16.951, and I said round to the hundredth, I would know the hundredth. If the decimal's there, this is the tenths where the 9 is. This would be the hundredths. I'm going to draw my arrow to the number to the right. Okay. You should know then that everything that's to the left of where I'm rounding is going to stay exactly the same. So this one would be 16.9. I would go ahead and bring that over. Now this 5 right here, where I'm rounding, is either going to stay as a 5 or it's going to go up to 6. And that's where you are going to have to know the rules. If the number to the right is 4 or less, we leave it alone. It stays a 5. If the number is 5 or more, we raise the score. So we make it go up to 6. Since that's a 1, we know that that's going to stay as a 5. And then we should know that everything to the right of where we round is always going to turn to zeros. So there we go. So that's a little bit of a hint on how to do it. But the big thing is you got to know these place values. And if you get on the internet, search place values, you'll be able to see them, or I think they're even in your agenda, I think. But either way, I put them in the review sheet number 1 video. If you go to the materials and review sheet number 1, grading I think it's called, you will find it there as well. Okay, I'm dividing. Okay, so I'm going to make one up. I'm going to do 134 divided by 6. Okay, so first of all, that would be written the same. If I was doing this one, it would have looked like this, 134 divided by 6. The first number of a division problem is called the dividend. You need to know that. You will know that. When we get to chapter 3, you'll have that understood. The second number is called the divisor. This is the number that's being divided up. This is the number that's doing the dividing. Okay? So, we put the dividend inside. Okay? Now, here we go. And, oh, I'm sorry, then the divisor would go outside. So this would be set up as 126, and then 4 would go there. Now, I'm not going to do that one because I'd be just giving you the answer, and I don't want to do that. Okay? We're going to ask ourselves, 6, can it go into 1? No. Some of your teachers might have taught you to put zeros there. Some people do X's. I've personally always just left it blank, but however you do it, I'm fine with that. Now we're going to ask ourselves if 6 can go into 13. We know they can go in 2 times. Now we're going to multiply around. 2 times 6 would give me 12. We're going to subtract that and get 1. Okay, now we're always going to check. I always want, after you subtract, you always want to check to make sure that that number right there is smaller than your divisor. If that number is ever bigger, like if that was 7, then that number has to go up. Okay, so that's why we check. Okay, now that we've checked and made sure it is smaller, and it is, we're now going to bring down our 4. Okay, now 6 goes into 14 2 times. Now again, we're going to multiply around just like we did before. 2 times 6, that's 12 again. Okay, now. Okay, so a lot of you, I don't know why I put 0 there, I didn't mean to do that. A lot of you put right now you would be saying your answer is 22 remainder 2. Now that is the very elementary way of doing this, and I'm not going to accept it. You all heard it here. I'm not going to accept it. So if you don't understand what I'm about to show you, you better figure it out, come see me, because I'm not going to accept remainders. We do not do remainders anymore at all. There are no remainders in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. You will never do remainders ever, ever, ever again, except for one thing, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. But as far as this as an answer, will not be accepted. Okay? So here's what we have to do. We have to add a decimal after this, because some people might say, well, there's nothing else for me to bring down. Well, yeah, there is. Can I add a decimal and a 0? Remember, did I change 134 at all? Did I change it and did I make it bigger or smaller by adding a decimal 0? No, it's just, all it is I just extended it out. Now we're going to bring down that 0. Now 6 goes into 20. Notice this decimal's got to go straight up. This should look familiar. You should have done this in 5th grade. Okay, 6 goes into 20 3 times. Okay, now I'm going to multiply 6 times 3. I'm going to get 18. I'm going to subtract that, and I'm going to get 20. Well, I still got a remainder, so I need to bring down another 0. Now, on the example that I chose, what you're going to find out, let me zoom out a little bit so we can keep going, is we're going to keep getting 3s over and over, because every time I multiply, I'm going to subtract and get 2. And then I'm going to bring down another 0, and here we are again, getting the same thing, that it goes in 3 times. The answer to this, the question I did, would be 22.3 repeating. Now, a good rule that I have is round to the hundreds. So if we went to another one like that, it would be 22.33, because if we were rounding right there, you would leave it a 3, and that would turn into a 0 after it. Okay. Now yours over here, it won't go to unlimited decimals. It'll stop. It'll stop at 1 decimal place. Okay. You may check with a calculator, but you are not allowed to just use a calculator. Your work has to match. Now, don't forget about this part down here. Everybody skips this when they do this, because I don't know if they just overlook it or what the deal is. By the way, if you need to do this on a separate sheet of paper, that's fine. Okay? The answers to the problems, the operation problems, we have something called a sum. We have something called a difference. We have something called a quotient. We have something called a product. Now, those 4, one of them is the answer to a subtraction problem, one is the answer to an addition problem, one is the answer to a multiplication problem, and one of them is the answer to a division problem. So you know it's one of those 4. So you need to know what those terms mean. We need to know these 4 things, because I'm going to be asking them a lot, and you have to know what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. Now, multiplying. You should know how to do this. You do not line up your place values, so I would simply take 345, and then I would take the number that's furthest to the right and shove it over all the way to the right, multiply. Done. Now, one way that I teach decimal multiplication is I actually do it a little bit more, probably different than you've done. And the way I do it is I basically say, let's just get rid of that decimal for a minute. So basically the problem that I would be teaching you to do is 223 times 6. Okay? Now, the reason I do that is because then you would multiply it out. So I'm just going to put like little lines. So here's your answer. Let's say those were numbers. Okay? Now once I'm done, I've got to put those decimals back in. So I got to put one right there. I got to put one right there. Okay? I just don't put them in at first. Because when you do 223.6, that's going to give you 1,000 something or other. Okay? So basically, now when you have 1,000 whatever, your decimal's right there. You have to go up here and you have to count up how many numbers that you had to the right of the decimal place in your problem. So 1, 2, right? And you've got to move that decimal 1, 2. Okay? And that's where it's going to be. So that's how you do decimals, if you've forgotten. Hopefully that was a good reminder. All right. We're going to be doing, this is actually Chapter 1, Learning Target number 9. This is the video that we're going to have on Tuesday night. Well, I shouldn't say Tuesday night, but it's going to be coming here. So just keep that in mind. But it's basically a word problem, and it's going to ask for a GCF or an LCM. Now, I'm not going to tell you. You can always look for it in your notes to help you out. There's a key word in there, and you can see it's bolded right there. That kind of gives you that indication. But as you guys are going through it, really try to answer the question. And if you want, find both the GCF and find the LCM. And what you're gonna find those. I'm not gonna tell you what they are, but you're gonna find them, and it's gonna be immediately you're gonna say, oh, well, one of them doesn't make any sense because of the question that we're asking. So I'm not gonna help you anymore with that. If you forget how to do GCF or LCM, this would be learning target number 7. This would be learning target number 8. Okay, so you can always go back and check those, but obviously there's a big old work required here because I better see trees, I better see stacking, I better see all of the work that I've always made you do for GCF and LCM. Okay. Now, this one's interesting. So it says, what are the first 3 common multiples of 12 and 16? So you've got to list those. So what I'd be looking for is I'd be looking for you to list out all the multiples of 12 and all the multiples of 16, because you have to find the first 3 common multiples. Now, you don't have to list them out. You can. You could do the tree method. I'm fine with that. If you actually did the LCM method and did the tree, stack them up, I'm fine. But if you just read down here, it kind of tells you how to do it. So basically what it's telling you right here for this first one, the first common multiple is obviously known as the least, or the LCM, the least common multiple. So this one's the LCM, okay? And then look what it says. Finally, to figure out this, you're going to add the LCM to itself to find the next common. That's going to go there. So that's adding this plus this to get that. And then for this arrow here that's on here, finally, you're going to add the LCM. So you're going to add this to the previous number, to that, to give you that. Okay? See if you can figure that one out. That one's a little bit tricky, but it's a really good question. Right here, we put it in there. Page 12 of your notes. Once again, I need to know whether it's true or false. I need to know why it's true or false. And I don't want you to ever do this and start dividing. That is not what I want. I want you guys to actually tell me using the divisibility rule. The rule for 4 is actually pretty easy. I think you're going to think it's very easy if you just read it. It's very easy. Same with the rule for 6. It's in page 12 of your notes as well. And it's not a very difficult rule. They're both easy to understand. You just might not know them off the top of your head. Okay? All right. Let's go in the back here. All right, coordinate, well, part of a coordinate plane. It's a grid. Okay? You just have to figure out what is the direction from point J to point K. So you can see it's a multiple choice. So going from right here to right here, you have to decide how many units to the right it went and how many units up it went. Very simple. Very, very simple on that one, I think. Okay? This last one is a function table, also known as an input-output, or some people call it an in and out. Your teacher in 5th grade might have turned this into this big machine thing, and it looked like this, and you talked about something numbers going in, and then they come out as something else. This would be the out, okay? Because they go in, they go through some of the machines, and then they become that. The 5 goes in, the 5 gets dropped in, it goes in, falls to there, slides across, something happens to it, okay? You need to figure out what is happening to it, but it has to be the same rule every single time. So if I drew one up here and I said that I put in 2, 3, 4, 5, these are my ins right here, and these are my outs over here, and I said this was 5, 6, 8, I'm sorry, not 8, 7, and 8. If I did it like that, you would say, what am I doing from right here to right here? Because that's what I'm trying to figure out. So as I look at this, I go, okay, what am I doing to make 2 become 5? Well, very basically, I'm adding 3. But you just can't select add 3. Okay? You're going to have to go through and make sure that that same rule applies for all these. And on mine, it does. Now, that's a very basic one that I just gave you. The one over here is a little bit more confusing. Okay? So it's multiple choice, so it makes it to where you can kind of try these. But remember, the key here is whatever rule you select, A, B, C, or D, it has to be the same thing. The same rule is being applied to every single input number. The 2, the 5, the 8, and the 10, so that you get the outputs every single time. So one of these rules will give you that every time. All right? Okay, that's the end of the quick video. I hope you guys found this helpful. Remember, you can go back and watch Review Sheet 2 quick video or any of them to help you with some of those ones that I told you about. Thanks, guys.